Peace, family. This is Mr. Holipsism. Kind of pissed off right now, and the reason why is because, I do it to myself, man. Um, I make the mistake of watching. I don't have a TV, um, and I get it's no real political statement I'm making. I just don't feel the need to get a flat screen TV for $700. I don't even watch TV, so very rarely do I watch anything except on the internet. And I happened to come across this video of this fucking idiot, Pat Buchanan. And he made the statement that this country was built by white folks and that affirmative action is evil. And this is all based on this new chick coming in, Sonia Sotomayor, or whatever her name is, who's going to become a Supreme Court justice. And when you look at the history of the Supreme Court, 108 out of 110 of the justices have been white males. But yet, these guys are trying to claim discrimination. Now, keep in mind, usually I don't deal with this because I really don't give a shit what white males have to say about anything, to be honest with you. I mean, their thoughts and opinions are irrelevant to me. Rich white men, I don't give a shit about how they feel about anything involving, our culture and our advancement. But what bothers me, what really pisses me off, is when I see a brother or a sister engage in a debate with these fools, and they never have an understanding of history so that they can call these fools and check them on their lies or their misconceptions or their disinformation. It's like, for instance, how can a white person or white man, I'll use this demographic. How can a rich white man be against affirmative action because it gives minorities disadvantage over white men? In other words, that our advantages gained by affirmative action is going to be a disadvantage to white men, and therefore white men are being discriminated against. When for about 300 years, there's been a long history of 100% racial quotas in favor of whites. So you're not against affirmative action. You're just against progression or advancement or discrimination against white people that benefits people of color or specifically black folks. Why doesn't somebody who has a knowledge of history go to Blueprint for Black Power by Amos Wilson? Blueprint for Black Power, a moral, political, and economic imperative for the 21st century. Amos N. Wilson. In this chapter, where he's talking about basis of power, he gives off a laundry list of 100% racial quotas in favor of whites. Let me read off. I'm going to start at 1675. Massachusetts Bay Colony seized plantation rights in 6 square mile tracts to quote-unquote worthy individuals. The population of the colony included black slaves as free blacks. Neither were treated as worthy individuals eligible for land grants. 1683. Maryland and Virginia established 50-acre land grants to settlers who pay their own way across the Atlantic. Blacks were given a free ride in slave ships and thus were not eligible for grants. Look this stuff up. Don't just take my word for it. Look it up. 1785. The Federal Ordinance of 1785 authorizes the sale of 640-acre tracts to settlers for $1 per acre. As slaves, blacks were legally prohibited from owning property. 1800. The federal government establishes liberal credit privileges in western territories for buyers of public land at a price of $1 an acre. Slaves not eligible and free blacks generally considered uncreditworthy. 1830. The Federal Preemption Act grants land settlers rights to purchase up to 160 acres each at $1.25 per acre. The vast majority of blacks are still slaves and ineligible to own property. No evidence of significant participation by free blacks. 1850, the beginning of massive federal land grant program for private railroad companies. Outright awards of 130 million acres frequently include property for 20 miles on either side of roadbeds. These lands later found to contain billions of dollars of petroleum and mineral reserves. Black businessmen never considered qualified to acquire, finance, or operate railroad franchises. 1862. The Homestead Act grants settlers 160-acre tracts of federal lands without charge. Over 250 acres of public lands transferred almost exclusively to whites in the most important land program in American history. Negro claimants blocked by lynch mobs, intimidation, and refusals of local authorities to protect their claims. 1889. In the celebrated Oklahoma land rush, 150,000 white settlers scrambled to claim the choices. Savage lynchings, Ku Klux Klan terrorism, and Jim Crow legislation kept Negroes out. Later, their heirs and successors of white settlers were to discover billions of dollars of petroleum resources on those lands. 1920. The Mineral Leasing Act authorizes the federal government to lease public land for the exploration of oil, gas, and other minerals. Affluent Negroes need not apply. Race discrimination in public awards was the established policy of the federal government in the 1920s. 1926. The Federal Air Commerce Act authorizes the granting of monopoly air routes to qualified aviators. The nation's airlines are born. 20,000 white pilots learned their trade in a rigidly segregated World War I Army Air Corps, ensuring the ownership of commercial aviation would be lily white. 1927. The Federal Radio Act authorizes the award of radio station broadcast franchises to private citizens. Under settled policy of the federal government, no grants were made to Negroes. Radio broadcast licenses, currently valued in the billions of dollars now, held almost exclusively by whites. 1939. The Federal Communication Commission issues the first licenses for television broadcast stations. No grants made to Negroes until token awards of the late 1970s. In 1980, all television franchises valued at $5 million to $10 billion held exclusively by whites. 1941. Government contracting becomes a major factor in the sales revenues and profits of private enterprises. Race discrimination in government contract awards become the official policy of the United States government. During the years 1941 to 1980, approximately $3 trillion in contract awards were made almost exclusively to white-owned firms. What are the sources for this? First, it comes from the Black Power Imperative by Theodore Cross. Sources include a thorough historical summary of the American public land grants may be found in Peter Wolf, Land of America, New York Pantheon Books, 1981. Mineral rights information is from Stephen L. McDonald, The Leasing of Federal Land for Fossil Fuel Production, Baltimore, Johns Hopkins University Press, 1979. The history of aviation is detailed in Carl Soberg, Conquest of the Skies, Boston, Little Brown and Company, 1979. Information on the history of radio and television franchising appears in Irwin G. Krasnow and L. B. Longley, The Politics of Broadcast Regulation, St. Martin's Press, 1973. Government procurement documents are from the Federal Office of the Management and Budget. So, all of this took place. All of this took place before so-called affirmative action, which I guess that was the executive order? Yeah, 1961 executive order by President Kennedy, which established the term affirmative action in the first place. All of this took place before affirmative action even came into existence. And by that time, white folks had a grip on all of the power sources and power branches in this country. And these motherfuckers are going to get on the defensive when white folks talk about, oh, well, we're not you're being discriminatory. Oh, we don't want to be discriminatory. That's not what we're doing. Well, check this out. Our problem as blacks in this country is not from us not discriminating against other people. Our problem is that we refuse to discriminate.